20 years ago, when we were in high school, it was like everybody looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean you want to do air conditioning? You're going to stand on a roof the rest of your life? All my buddies thought I was nuts. And now here we are 20 years later, and we're the guys, making money. I think the trades are becoming sexy again, kind of like how it
Yeah.
was back in the 80s and 90s. You don't learn from doing stuff right, you learn from doing shit wrong.
Hola, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. I appreciate everybody for tuning in, watching this live. If you guys join the live chat, I appreciate you guys interacting with me and the guest. If you guys are on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the new channel and help the podcast out by wherever you listen to on Spotify, Apple Podcast, making sure you leave a 5-star review, hopefully, and get the podcast out to more people. And I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsors that help support the podcast. If you guys are interested in the software that we use to help my business, you can go check out Jobber. If you guys follow the link in the description or go to getjobber.com/reliablehvacr, you will get a free trial and discount and see if it can help you out. I also want to thank VETO Pro Pack, best tool bags out in the market. You guys already know I'm a VETO person. I have a VETO setup for everything in my van. So if you guys want to check out the link in the description, you can go to their website, go see all the bags that they have, go check out my customer profile that's there, and show your support. And I want to thank our newest sponsor, BOSCH. They are changing the game with their inverter heat pumps. BOSCH IDS Lite 15 SEER system has it all, combining quality inverter technology and standard efficiency at an affordable price point. The outdoor unit is available in 24K, 36K, and 60K BTU capacity, and it can be paired with either a wall or ceiling air handler. Gives you plenty of installation options. The BOSCH IDS Lite will be equipped with a low GWP R54B refrigerant by this fall. Visit boschhomecomfort.us to learn more. On today's episode, we have the Bluecollar Maverick, Ryan, owner of Top Gun Mechanical. It was really cool because he does basically everything under the sun, right? Residential to heavy commercial equipment, HVAC, refrigeration, everything. Really cool to hear about the whole family businesses that they've had. They've had several, from HVAC to gun shops to powder coating. I mean, this guy likes to put a lot on his plate, needless to say. So I'll leave all his information in the description where you can find him on Instagram and all that. And without further ado, enjoy the episode.
We're in Southern California. We're in like the armpit of California.
So it gets pretty hot over there, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're in the middle of the desert, so we're right up against the Mexico border, about an hour east of San Diego.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in same situation over here in Texas. I'm on the border of Mexico too, so we're the south as much as you can get over here in Texas.
You like over by McAllen or what?
Yeah, do you know the area?
Yeah, my cousin actually moved there. He's a customs agent, and he got transferred because we have a couple big ports here. And he was like, "I'm getting out of California. I'm going to Texas." So that's where he ended up.
Interesting. Yeah, that's my main area is McAllen. So like,
Nice.
we're the Rio Grande Valley. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's what we service. So we service, like, McAllen would be our midpoint. We service
Okay.
2 hours east and west, like each way. So like we have work, sometimes in town, which Texas is kind of big. I think you probably deal with the same thing. Like a call that should be close by, it could still be like 30 minutes away, with traffic and everything. And then, like I said, if we service 2 hours each way, one way is the middle of nowhere. And then the other way is basically our beach. So I get to work on the beach sometimes.
That's cool. Nice. Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. I kind of stick to local where we're at within I guess 60 miles, you could say. But I do end up running into San Diego for some customers here locally that have beach houses and stuff like that up there. So yeah, same thing. We sometimes will work on the beach, which is a nice change of pace, that's for sure.
Oh yeah, it's nice sometimes. So like Top Gun Mechanical, is that your business?
Yeah.
How long have you guys been in business?
So this business I actually started about 3 years ago. Um, we actually have multiple businesses. So the originating company we go under is R&K Air Conditioning. So that's a family owned and operating business. That's me, my pops, my brother, and my uncle. We're all tied into that business, which we started about 22 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And now the old timers, they're basically on their way out. So they own that contractor's license. And my brother and I both have our own contractor's licenses as well under separate companies. So we essentially own and operate our own, also tied into R&K.
So,
So
does your brother have his own, or he's with you?
nope, he has his own contractor's license as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're just a family of contractors, I guess you could
Yeah.
say. Family of business owners, really. We all kind of own multiple businesses. So
See, like that's been on my mind every now and then, and I think I had seen something about you and your brother at one point. So I didn't know if y'all work together or separate, but like ours is a family business too, right? My dad started what, and I never understood the name, but it's Reliable Kitchen Services, right? So
right,
he does cooking equipment. I brought the HVAC into it when I started because I went to school for it, got my license, all that stuff. So
nice.
like we work together under the same umbrella, but like I was like, man, if I ever go off on my own, I already got the Reliable HVAC name over here.
Yeah,
And it's been on my mind here and there because I was like, I don't know the cooking side. I know the
right,
HVAC side. So I
yeah,
told him, I was like, you need to start training somebody to do that, or it's going to turn into Reliable HVAC.
right, yeah, yeah. You kind of have your own side within the business, I guess you could say.
Yeah, it's always hard to explain it because, I mean, I don't know how you were with your dad and stuff, but like when I started, I was in my early 20s. Everybody looked at me a certain way because I was a kid. Like, what does this kid know? And you know, you're shaking your head like you've been through that too.
100%, man. I started at the bottom too. I mean, I've been doing it longer than I haven't, but as a kid, doing service calls with my old man and stuff like that. He worked for another company at the time, which he bought into, and
Oh,
then ended up parting ways with them when R&K got started. And yeah, I was a punk ass 16-year-old kid, man. Just doing service calls and demoing duct and you know, right at the bottom of the barrel, sweeping the shop and do whatever I could
yeah,
get,
yeah.
whatever
Like
I
I,
could
I
do.
I would tag along. I remember those weekends when he started his business. Going to a job site in the pickup truck that old pickup truck that he bought just for that, and
Yep.
being a kid, just waking up early on the weekend and being half asleep there. But then like I got into it and I liked it, right? And I started enjoying it more every time. So I started taking it, well, like you said, being a punk kid. Like I at the
Yeah,
beginning,
as
at the
fast as you
beginning,
could.
at the
Yeah.
beginning, I just wanted my check. I was like, I
Yep.
like get in and out. This is
Yep.
just a job to me. I wasn't super into it. I was way too young to
Yep.
realize it. And then once I did take it seriously, like it was hard to get people to look at me like with respect, right? Like I'm a kid. I got my
You're the
license.
boss son.
I had that stigma for so long and I hated it. And my
You
dad
and me.
would my dad would try to buy into it and he would try different things. Like I was so annoyed like when he got us uniforms and mine said owner and in my name.
Yeah.
I was like, don't do
Yep.
that. But he was just trying to get me to buy into, being an owner, being, talking to managers, whatever it is that you do.
Yep.
And then once I tried to get into that and try to take it seriously, like I still had people like, "Who's this kid?" Right? Like I got my license in my mid 20s, and I was like, I got it as soon as I could.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do this business stuff, but it was very hard in the beginning. So like, you know, I get all that, and seeing my dad start up his business, and then now I always try to explain to people, like, I know he's my dad. He started the business. I give him credit for all that, but he doesn't do what I do. So we had a partnership essentially, right? And I do my own thing. He does his thing. We just work together. So it's cool to see that you guys kind of branched out from that too.
Yeah, we're the same way. So, I started my first business at 18, and then started a second at 23, and these are all totally separate from,
But are
quote unquote,
they
the
similar or are
family.
they different
So one,
businesses?
one was similar. One was a duct testing company that I owned and operated for about 6 years. Being in California, we have all the Title 24 and all that stuff. So I did that for a while and had a couple employees. It was actually, it ran fine. And then a buddy of mine actually took over on that end of it just because we were too busy on the AC side. It was too much to juggle. And then I actually started another company that was a powder coating shop. So it ended up being a big coating facility, which we rolled into a bunch of other stuff. And it actually got sold to a customer about 4 years ago, which was cool. I was ready to basically move on from it. I knew that it got to the point where it was as big as it was going to grow, and I was, I had always intended on selling it. Let's put it that way. I built
Oh,
it and
okay.
planned on selling it. I never intended on keeping it, under my name, operational anyway. So,
So you like to keep yourself busy then?
well, yeah.
Because
Everybody uses the word entrepreneur, and I hate that word. I'm just like, I'm
oh,
just a business owner. I don't know if I'm crazy because I love losing sleep and not sleeping and working 24/7. I don't know. It's just what
it's
I
funny
enjoy
because
doing.
I've talked to other people doing this show and stuff, and I'm like, man, we're a lot alike. Because like even like talking to you right now, I I don't know why I like doing all this stuff. Like you said, you lose sleep, you stay up, you work after hours, you do all this other stuff that that needs to get done. And
Yeah,
I feel like you just continue to put more on your plate on purpose, and it's only your own fault.
exactly. We're the only ones to blame.
Because like I said, getting into my dad's business, it was his. I finally chose to take it seriously, and I've been doing more and more every year. But I, I've never done it on the scale that you have, I guess. But like I used to do other stuff. I used to fix phones and tablets and laptops and stuff like as a side thing, and I would at that point like it was probably in my 20s, like mid 20s, around the time that I got my license and all that. So I was doing that on the side. I made a business for it and everything. Like I did it mostly out of my house, but like I made it legit as I could. And I did that for a good while, just because I like doing that stuff. And I made a killing doing it too. Like I would do it on the weekends, and I would make hundreds of dollars just replacing
hmm
people's screens and fixing these little issues that they had, and all the stuff that a phone shop would do.
right.
And I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm that kind of person that has to keep myself busy every day
Yeah,
just to be
yeah,
like sane.
yeah. Exactly. Keep people like, don't you go crazy? And I'm like, I go crazy sitting still. I can't sit still. I don't want to be stagnant. Everybody always talks about all these multiple sources of income, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I agree with all that. It just like on my second business, I think I lost more money in that business than anything. But you gain experience from it. And that's where you kind of, learn a lot. I told you don't learn from doing stuff right. You learn from doing shit wrong. So
It's the
I
best
took a
way.
lot yeah, I took a lot away from that business by, learning basically how to own and operate a business on your own, starting from scratch, from nothing and building it up.
This podcast is presented by Local. Local works tirelessly to help HVAC contractors rank higher on Google. They use an attack methodology to make sure that contractors dominate their local service areas and increase their market share and generate higher revenue. Reach out to Local at localhq.com/reliable. Mention me or the Reliable HVACR podcast, and you'll get 2 months of SEO for free. That's hard because
Yeah.
doing it right now with my dad, He's real old school. I've
Yes,
I've
mine too.
tried to I've tried to bring him into like, newer stuff, and like even like the taxes and all that he does. Like he didn't know too much of anything, right? He just, you know, I charge this, I make this, and that was his way of running it, right?
Yep.
And I'll give him this. Like he's really good at networking and people skills and all that. That's what I had to learn from him. But like running it and all that, like it's been a journey because we've had to learn a lot. And I don't know, like with your dad, he started it. How old were you when he started it?
I was 17, 16 when he
Okay.
started that business, and he was just cracking over 40, I think.
My dad worked for a pretty big company locally that did like what he does.
Hmm.
And he got bored. That's kind of how it started. He got bored because he was a like a supervisor basically, and he wanted to
Right.
be out in the field. So he started his without, I don't think without knowing too much, right? Like, just go for it. That kind
Right.
of deal. I don't know if your dad
Right.
had any similar situation, or like did he plan this out?
He was pretty well seasoned at that point. He probably had about 20 years in then, and he actually owned part of the company he worked for. And I think he saw the end of the tunnel where he saw where it was going. He had other business partners, and that business was essentially failing, which now it's non-existent. So obviously he made the right choice.
Yeah.
But yeah, he uh, he was part owner in that company, and actually told them to buy him out, and he ended up leaving. So
And
yeah, same thing.
did you just tag along when he started that?
No, actually, so he had been in business about a year before I even kind of got interested in it. I was, like I said, I was 16 years old, and
Oh yeah.
I I've always had a job, I guess you could say. I was mowing lawns as a kid at 8, 9 years old for all the neighbors, and then I worked for a local bee company, 14 and 15 as a beekeeper with one of my buddies. And then, once they started the business, I was kind of like, okay, maybe I want to try this. And, I remember the very first project I did with them, we were doing a school, and one of our foremen hired his nephew as well. And he was my age. And he was like, okay, we got to demo all this duct in this building. Here's a hammer, here's a crowbar and a sawzall. Don't kill yourself. So,
Yeah.
and it just started there. And then I kind of rolled into a technician role. One of the techs that we hired, I rode with him for 2 summers, and we were just doing calls every day, 7 days a week. Sometimes 16 to 18 hours a day, and we go to sleep at
Yeah.
midnight and wake up at 6 a.m. and do it all over again.
Oh man.
And
We've had those, especially when we started. Like I hated that. We were working so long, like super long days,
nonstop. Yep.
and trying to build it up. And man, you started way younger than I did though. I can imagine like you trying to get into it and trying to, have like find figure out if you like it basically.
You're trying to find your place. And,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Because like I started like when I was 20. So I thought, that was pretty young, but starting at 16, I can imagine you got other things you want to do. I was big into sports when I was younger. So I was always trying to go find a basketball court or play games, trying to be in all this other stuff. So I don't know if you had any other hobbies or anything at that time, but I can imagine that 16, 17, that's kind of hard.
yeah. See, I've always been big into off road and racing and stuff. So I was always trying to make money to buy parts for my truck. And my brother was super into sports. He was the jock, but couldn't turn a wrench, and I was the opposite. I sucked at sports, but I was the grease monkey. So we're like polar opposites.
Yeah, it's funny
And
because I tell people because I get questions here and there about like if it's a good job to get and all that, or how how to get your foot in the door, or how to start, or what is needed. And I always tell people like I was not like I said I was into sports. I was even into video games for a while. I was
mhm,
not that mechanically inclined when I started,
right,
but I was very competitive. I guess from
right,
sports and stuff. So like
yeah,
when I started and I was riding along with other people, that was always like the report that they gave back to my dad Well, he's good. He learns quick, and he's paying attention and all that. But he doesn't know how to work a drill, or he doesn't know how to do this, or he's a little slow, or whatever it was. I was like, okay, really? Like I'm gonna take that criticism, and I'm gonna, next time I'm gonna do it quicker. I'm gonna learn how to do this or do that. So
Right.
I came from that aspect of being not mechanically inclined whatsoever to, doing what we do in this trade, which is very intensive on tools and different things. Like, you got to know how to use this stuff. You got to be able
Uh,
to demo something, put something together, take it apart, all that stuff. So if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Same thing when I first got started. My biggest concern was, okay, it's summer, it's hot. Where am I taking the boat this weekend? When are we leaving? It didn't really click with me, I would say, until I started my second business. Even the first business, the duct testing, it was cool, but it was more of a way to you know um, benefit a company, and it got to the point where it just got to be too hectic. Everybody, it was the last thing that needed to be done to get a permit signed off, and everybody was calling, "Hey, I need you like today." So that that didn't even really make my mind click. It wasn't until I started my second business where it was like, okay, the wheels start turning, and you really get more into the business side of things, or even the how a business operates and how it runs and what it actually takes to make a money
Yeah.
on the back end of it. The stuff nobody sees. So on the HVAC side of things, it took a little while. People think like, how do you guys do that? You're crazy. You're on a roof, and it's 118 here. So on the roof, it's like 150, and it's just like, I don't know. You just do it. It is, if we have to.
It's not for everybody. I mean, I feel like
No.
anybody can pick it up if they wanted to, if they really wanted to, but it's not for everybody. We're outside all the time. You're probably in similar conditions that I am, because 110, 115, I think I've seen it as high as 118. We
Yep.
get that too. And I'm on these commercial rooftops. I see that you do a lot of commercial work. These rooftops are no joke, especially the white vinyl and all that. I've I always wear my sunglasses, and I realized, right away, like one time I forgot them. I had like a headache or a migraine that whole day, because I had a
Yep.
whole day's worth of work at this one location with the white, like brand new at that,
Yep.
brand
It's a
new
mirror.
white roof.
Yeah.
But I mean, I still love what I do, because I'm up there, um, figuring out things, helping out the customer. I've tried, as I got older, to try to cover myself, right? I think you probably have the umbrellas too, right? I think I've seen you post about them. Get your little shade going. Get your
Yep.
sleeves if you want to wear long sleeve. Get your hat. Like, try to
Yep.
protect yourself. But I mean, I still love being up there.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference to protect yourself, and you see a lot of these old timers like, oh, you don't need that, umbrella. What are you using that for? And it's like, because I don't want to be all jacked up at your age like you are,
I don't want
You-
skin cancer. I don't want like that.
yeah,
You know.
and I get it, it was a different time then, and people really operated differently. But now, you got to remember at the end of the day, you still have to take care of number one, and that's you, where
And I've
me taking
seen.
the extra 2 minutes to put up an umbrella, I
Oh yeah.
can actually be on a roof for, an extra 2 or 3 hours rather than killing myself standing in direct sunlight. So, it benefits everybody at that point, not
It,
just
it
yourself.
it's hard on your body, because people will
Right.
talk about the lifting, or any of that other stuff that's hard on your body, but like, the sun is that'll make or break you on a rooftop.
It's no, it's no joke. I ask everybody when I first hire a tech, like, how do you do in direct sunlight? And I have a story. I have a guy that I hired. This was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I'm like, how do you do in, direct sunlight? Oh man, no problem. He was from Chicago. Okay. So the polar
Oh
opposite.
yeah.
And he's like, dude, I was in a steam room on a Navy boat in the military. And I'm like, okay, that's great. It was 150 degrees in there. I said, that's fine. But how do you do in direct sunlight?
Yeah.
Couldn't hack it. Just, he, And I felt bad for the guy because, you know, he felt like defeated, and because he didn't last very long. He's like, man, this heat is no joke. You know, the sunlight is, you were right. And I'm just like, I told you, man, the direct sunlight is just a totally different monster. You're standing in the shade in 120, no problem. Get
Exactly.
on a roof in direct sunlight, it's no joke.
That's what, and I think I've had this conversation with somebody recently. I'm like, it's a little bit different, right? Because it's not really the heat that gets you. Like, yes, every now and then you have those days where like I've told people, like, it's hard to breathe sometimes with the way the humidity and stuff gets. Like that's one thing. But on a usual normal day, like you said, you can be in the shade forever. You can be there and it's 120, 115, whatever it is. It's fine. It's not going to kill you. Take away the shade, like you're not gonna be able to think. You're not gonna be able to hack it. You're not gonna be able to do much in the sun. That's always like I said, make or break. Just doing that, setting up an umbrella. We've always tried different ways to get shade, and like my mind is so much clearer too. Because if you get that sun on you, you just want to get out of there. You can't think straight. It
It
frustrates
literally cooks
you
your brain,
way. Yeah, it literally cooks your brain because you're trying to figure out something, and then you're like, I can't do this anymore, right? You just don't want to, you kind of want to quit. You're like, I don't want to do this. uh, so try to shade yourself or wear a hat that shades you really well, something, because man, that sun makes a big difference. That's what I always tell people. It's always the sun. Today's episode is also brought to you by NAVIEN. If you haven't seen it yet, NAVIEN has entered the HVAC space in a big way with the new NPF hydro furnace. This hydronic forced air furnace delivers industry-leading variable capacity operation from 15 to 100% in both natural and propane configurations. You can learn more at navieninc.com. I also want to thank DIVERSITECH. They simplify your work. They have everything a contractor needs to complete a job. That goes from equipment mounting, condensate management, tools, maintenance chemicals, electrical components, indoor air quality, and much more. They have different branches under the same umbrella. More than likely, you're already using some of their products or tools. So go check out diversitech.com, and it's your one-stop shop for everything HVAC. Top Gun Mechanical. Is there a reason you chose that name?
So I also own a gun shop, and that's under Top Gun Ballistics.
Oh,
So Top
gotcha.
Gun Mechanical, really the business names were based off of, because we're in Southern California, you know, Top Gun's literally an hour from my home. Um, and it kind of runs with how I like to operate things. You know, you think of fighter pilots and Top Gun, and they're, you know, they're the best. They're the elite one percenters, you know, and I try and operate on that same level with what we do. You know, we're we're not the company to call because we're the cheapest. We're the company to call because we do it right and we do it the best way possible. So that kind of rolls with it too.
Man, we like when we started, as much as I gave my dad crap for the name, I was like, I don't get it. Um, Reliable Kitchen Services, right? And it's still hard, but I had to kind of brand it in a way where people know what we do. But
Right.
at the time, I was like, I don't get it. I was thinking like come up with something clever or whatever. But then I realized, when we got into these, customers and fixing things for them and all that, they would always go back to the name and they'd be like, man, you guys really are reliable. And that's what after a while, we kind of pride ourselves on that aspect of
Yeah.
it. Like try to be same day service. I mean, sometimes it's hard in the summer, but as quick as response as we can get you, like we're still quicker than our competitors. Cause companies are like a week, 2 weeks out sometimes. And like, we try to make time for them, even if it's just to go look at it, give them a quote,
Yeah.
whatever. So what kind of work do you guys do? Cause I thought I knew what you did, and I went through your posts, and I feel like you guys do pretty much everything.
We literally do everything, man. And when we started the first company, 22 years ago, we were always commercial based. So that's the background that my dad had. That company he worked for, they were the biggest in town. it was the 80s and 90s, they were booming on commercial. And so that's where he really cut his teeth on. When I came in, we did only people we knew on the residential side. Like it was literally if we dealt with the customer on a commercial building, we would do their house and that was it. So
Yeah,
I
we've
really
seen that too.
I really wanted to boom that side of the business. So I went to Tyler, Texas we were huge train guys then, and went to their, no pressure sales training, yada, yada, yada for 14 days, did that. And then I really boomed our residential side as far as sales go. Focused on that for about 5-6 years. And then my brother kind of rolled into the mix and took that over for me. And then I really pushed hard on the commercial side. But we literally do everything. We do commercial, residential, service, refrigeration, repair. I'm really trying
See,
to cut back on the service side just because of help. It's really hard to
mm,
find great techs. And a lot of the techs that we have hired and we were with us for a long time, they're all looking for that, cushy school district job where they can go change filters and
the
not have to 24/7. And I get that,
yeah,
it's understandable. They're trying to watch out for themselves, but at the same time, on the business side of it, if you don't have bodies to send, then you obviously can't take care of that work. So I'm always really focused on the commercial side. I have been for the last, 15 years. That's what I enjoy doing. My brother really likes the residential side of it. He likes the service and repair and the residential installs. That's kind of his niche. And that's kind of why we've, and rather than, keeping one company as a whole, we all have different views of how our businesses should be ran. So everybody kind of does their own thing, if you want to call it that. So we all still are, we all work together within the one
yeah.
big company for the next couple years, I would say, because the old man's ready to retire. He's over it. He's had enough, and it's kind of like, okay, great. So we all kind of, my whole thing is evolve or dissolve, and how old timers are. They don't want to change. This has worked for me for the last 20 years. We're going to be just fine for the next 20. It's like, no, you have to make necessary changes,
Hmm.
you've got to grow with, as the business is growing. And obviously everyone knows our field is changing so rapidly. So, it's hard to keep up when you're stuck in 1980, I guess.
Yeah, man. Like, so you and your brother really are opposites. So he enjoys the residential service, and you like the commercial stuff.
Yeah.
So then, your dad still runs his with his own guys and stuff.
Well, so my brother and I run that company. My dad is still around, but he just is kind
So
of
you
there,
you guys do a lot then.
Yes, we juggle a lot, literally. We've got
Um.
about 30 employees between all of it.
Oh, okay, I got you. That's kind of cool though. So that was another question of mine was like, what do you prefer? So you prefer the commercial? Are you doing like
100%.
installs and new construction type of stuff?
That's what I mainly focus on is new construction commercial. I love VRF. We were the
That's funny.
first company.
My last guest that I just recorded with, he's like, I hate VRF.
Yeah, it's not for everybody, man. We were the first company to actually bring VRF to Southern California, our area anyway. And once I saw it, the very first job I did, it just like it engulfed me. I was just like, this is awesome. This is gonna be That's what I kept telling everybody, this is gonna be the next thing you see on HVAC. Like this is gonna be everywhere. And I was no, you're crazy, you're crazy. It's too far advanced, it'll die off like everything else. And I'm like, no. I call them chiller killers. I said these are, you know, putting chillers to the backside, and it's, the technology is crazy and it's just growing even more. So that's kind of what I enjoy doing is the VRF stuff. I would put VRF in every building if I could.
Yeah, I mean it's like you said, you gotta move with the times because like the stuff that I learned, from old timers back in the day, it's wasn't always the best advice or the best way to do things. And I always tell people I had the advantage of that I went to school. So I had pretty good teachers that were into, keeping up with, new practices and all that. So I knew better when I got into the field.
Right.
And And again, you know, being that young guy that starts out at 20, like 21, whatever it was, I'm out there trying to do my bringing out my nitrogen, bringing out my micron and vacuum gauge, and then these guys
And
are looking
everybody
at
looks like you're crazy.
like, what are you doing? You don't need to bring all this extra stuff on the roof. I'm like, this is the way you're supposed to do it, right? And then, you know, run my recovery tank, right? Guys have their buckets, you know,
The
it is what
load
it
and
is.
all. Yeah. That was the time then though, you know, and that's the wild part is I feel like that's coming back to where people are really focused on, okay, you know, let's do it the right way. This is how it's supposed to be done. Where, you know, back in those old timers from the 80s and early 90s, that was a wild west, dude. They just did whatever, you know. Oh yeah, beer can cold, it's running great, you know. But you know,
And
yeah, I
I've had that conversation with people. Like, I feel like, because again, I always say HVAC can be very forgiving, right? Like, and it was more so back in the day. Like, if you did
much
things,
more.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
did things minimal effort, the wrong way, whatever it was, more times than not, that unit's just going to run fine, 20 years, whatever it is. It's a little harder to do that now with all the advances that we have, all the different refrigerants we have. Like, we could go on and on. Like, you got to keep up with the best practices, and there's no excuse because there's so many people that post educational content. Everything is online now. I
Yes.
was in that in between era where I could, like, smartphones were barely a thing. Like,
Yep.
the iPhone had just came out, right? There was not much you could do with it. I was not finding this stuff online. There was no YouTube or anything like that, right? It's so easy to do that now, to look up stuff.
So,
So, you know, take the effort to look up what you're doing or the best way to do it.
and that's what I tell, you know, like new hires, our techs, you know, when I started, exactly, I didn't have a phone, you know, I didn't have YouTube. I said, you guys have a supercomputer at your fingertips. I was reading schematics, and what I was always told was figure it out, you know, just
Oh
figure it
yeah.
out. So we did. And I tell them, I said, you guys have no excuse. You have YouTube at your palm. You have indefinite access to technical support, and if you can't figure it out, then you're in the wrong trade, or you
You're
just
not
don't
even
care.
trying.
Yeah, you're not even trying. Exactly. So I'll get a phone call like, oh, you know, I did this and this and this. Okay, did you look this up? Well, no. I said, okay, well, why not? You know, don't don't call me unless you get to the dead. I'm your last worst case scenario. Okay, I gotta call Ryan because I cannot figure this out. And if you call me, then you probably didn't even try to figure out the problem. You know,
That's how
and
my dad taught me.
yeah,
Um, I would go right along with him. Like I said,
yep,
he would leave me somewhere. Like, we would end up at a whatever machine we're working on, and he would just disappear. And
yep,
that whole mindset was like, figure it out, right?
yep,
And talked to my because my uncles used to work with us too, and I talked to him because, or I talked to them because he trained them as well. What was cool about my dad is that he learned the food service industry coming from being an electrician. So he picked
okay,
that up, worked his way up, you know, in his company that he was at, and was like the top guy. At that company, his brothers went to go work. One was like laying tile or doing something in construction of that nature. The other guy was installing car alarms, right? They wanted to get into the trade and do something different. My dad taught them, you know, everything they know, and got them they still do. One does HVAC and one works for us doing the kitchen stuff. And I told them about it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, he does that. That's the way he trains. Like, he'll plop you somewhere and then let you figure it out."
you later, yeah, and that, you know, my my old man's motto was always, "What would you do if I wasn't here?" You know, with
Yeah,
everything, whether it be technical stuff, you know, running a business, you know, whatever. We had to figure it out on our own. You know, it's like people see this big, you know, company that we have within the family, and it's like, no, everybody earns their keep. You know, there's no handouts. It's if you didn't figure it out, you're not going anywhere. You know, you're gonna stay right where you're at. So but I feel like you know that generation that it's like you know what do they say it's you know whatever you're taught is what you know type deal. So if you teach yourself, you know, you're the only one to blame at that point. And it's kind of funny because those old timers, you know, they lead with an iron fist. It's like, oh, you know, this is how it needs to go, and you know, lots of yelling and hurry, 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 and you know, it they're great businessmen, but they're terrible bosses for the given times now. You
Oh
know, it's
yeah.
a lot different than
Yeah,
what it used to be.
there's some guys that, like, you know, they're good at what they do. They're good employees, they're good, you know, they fix things, but they're not the best to, you know, teach others. So I think,
Yes.
and I think that's a cool thing. Like we're the next line, you know, trying to train, you know, the next guys. So I hope,
Yeah.
you know, we can tell them, you know, the way we do it and the
Yep.
right way to do things, and how you have resources at your fingertips. You can, you know, basically do anything now and be better than, you know, the competitors and stuff. Because another thing I've always said is like if you, the only thing that you can do to be or to set yourself apart is honestly just effort. Like even the smallest amount of effort, like taking the extra time to do this or do that, learning more after work, looking up stuff that you don't know, you know, all that stuff is what kind of makes you better than the next technician.
Literally, that's my biggest pet peeve is laziness. You know, it's so easy to put in a little bit of effort, go a little bit farther, go do a little bit more, and you learn a lot just by doing that, you know?
Yeah,
And I think that I'm with you on the social media thing, like the guys that are out there, you know, doing the educational videos and well, this is how you know, build a duct or bend a duct, this is how you bend pipe. You know, I think it's great because the young guys coming in actually have an avenue to go to and watch and learn and essentially be on the fast track to being a better tech or installer or whatever the case may be. I mean, obviously you still have to do the work, but you
yeah,
know, when you're sitting there and you're able to watch, you know, something over and over again, we're like, oh yeah, I can do that, you know, and it it's
yeah.
crazy the
Because
advantages they have at this point. You know, they have a huge advantage
I
where
and
guys like you and I did not. So
and like I said, I love it too. I mean, I came from a place that didn't have that. I learned it
yes,
the
me too.
hard way. You learn it out in the field. You make your mistakes and deal with it that way. But there's, I mean, I hate to go back to the old timers because they're the ones in the comments that are like, "Why are you giving out our secrets or this and that?" They need to learn it the hard way. I'm like, no, like we should better prepare people out in this
Yes,
field, because like the last thing I want as a business owner is like a tech that comes in and messes up, you know, left and right. I'd rather them come in being, even if it's just watching YouTube, they know a thing or two, right? And they can get a good start. And what's funny is I just did a an ice machine repair, right? I've never seen it, never worked on this brand before. Replacing the evaporator on it, I was like, okay, that's a big deal. And then they're like, oh, here's a YouTube video. They sent it over because it was like a warranty call. And like, we got a YouTube
that's how
video.
scan this QR code and
Yeah.
it'll show you everything you need to know. Yep.
I was trying to
Yeah.
prepare myself because I was like, I've never seen it before. I'm going to, you know, examine it and look at it. And then they're like, oh, no, here's a YouTube video. Just go, you know, follow it step by step. I'm like, all right. And it was super simple. That's just the world we live in now.
Yeah, it really is, you know, and it's good and bad because it keeps you efficient, you know, and keeps you moving where, okay, now I can, you know, get the work done and move on to the next one. And at the same time, you know, if you're not taking the time to watch that video per se, if that's your instruction manual, then your mistakes are your own fault, you know, which
Yeah.
people need to make mistakes, you know, that's how you learn. That's how all of us learn. You don't forget the stuff you did right. You remember the stuff you did wrong, you know?
Dude,
So
that's another thing is like, you know, like we said, like you learn from experience, you make mistakes. It's inevitable. Like even now I still make mistakes here and there.
oh,
So
everyone does. Yeah.
you're going to learn from those. And I always tell people like, what are the things that you remember the most? It's all your screw ups, right? And then all the times that you've, you know, gotten something to work. Like at the end of the day, you fixed it. Those are the two
Yep.
things that you remember like
Yep.
forever.
Especially on a Friday night at 10 o'clock when
Uh,
you
I still have,
worked 14 hours a day the last freaking 6 months straight. Yeah. It's like,
I, s-
yeah, all right.
I still have this one customer that like I get nightmares from because it was like such a a headache to get their stuff working. Like I went in there to take over for this other company that they got tired of because they were going in like charging for refrigerant every month. They're like,
Yeah.
I know we got a leak somewhere. We're paying this thing every month for them to top it off. I'm like, okay. So that was one issue, but like the RTUs on that rooftop, there were Lennox units. They weren't the Prodigy ones. They were the ones right before. Either way, Lennox, I think, yeah, Lennox always has like they had boards, they had wires everywhere. It's a huge mess when you get into those RTUs. Somebody cut all the wires and bypassed so many things, and it took me. I've never seen one before at that point. Took me all. It took me days to figure that stuff out. I'll be honest. And that one, I always tell people that's the one that almost kicked my ass. Like I almost gave up on that one. But we went one by one, figured out the schematic, figured out everything, and then I finally got everything back together. And I'm like, okay, this unit needs, because there were faulty boards. That's what made them bypass everything. But finally got everything wired back up the way it's supposed to. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, this one needs this board, this one needs that, whatever it was. Just took me forever, but I was like, I'm gonna sit down and figure it out, and I'll just never forget that. Like I remember that vividly, and like I said, I get nightmares on it sometimes.
You don't really remember the stuff you did right. You more remember the stuff you did wrong, and that's what I tell you. That's how you learn. Make mistakes. You need to make mistakes, but just don't make big ones.
Oh, I know, and I've been there. Like I said, being so new when I started. I mean, no, everybody starts not knowing. And I burned holes through a bunch of copper. I've shorted out boards. Stuff happens. You just gotta deal with it and move on, and that's the way you learn.
But
I saw you do sheet metal. You still do that?
yeah, we have a full sheet metal shop. So like when guys come down from San Diego, they're like amazed because they're just like, "Oh wow, you guys build everything," and we literally do. We build everything. The only thing we don't build is grill cans. We buy those, but everything is built in house. Where the standard now, like up in San Diego and LA, is everything's built to order. Okay, we
Yeah,
look at a set of plans, order it, and we build everything.
yeah. Because I had seen that and I was like surprised. Like I said, not or like you said, not a lot of people do that. That's
Yeah,
something
not
that
anymore. It's not art, man.
I love seeing it. I don't do residential. I don't do duct work, so like I don't have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah,
But I've always been super fascinated by that. And down here, it's a lot of duct board anyway.
yeah.
A good old duct board and flex. That's all I see down here.
Somebody was telling me that the other day, and I'm like, wow, duckboard. I was like, we don't hardly use any duckboard here, but that's super convenient, that's for sure. You know?
And that's what I learned. So like going to school, I had, and I give my teachers credit. They were pretty adamant about teaching us the hard way to do things, the manual way to do things. Cut your own duct board, build your own offsets, your own 90s, your transitions. Like they had us do everything by hand. And they're like, more than likely, when you get out in the field, you can just order this stuff. You can just buy it already made. But
Yeah.
you're gonna learn to do it the hard way, so that you know. So like I learned all that. Always, I had fun doing that stuff. Like I found it fascinating, and it's just something that we don't do at our business because we do kitchen stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, I always tell people that down here it's just ductboard and flex. So like I just had one a couple months ago that when the RTUs clog up, I always tell my customers, if you just do maintenance with us, you won't have these issues. But they're really stubborn about it. So like they'll overflow into the duct board into the return. So like I had one recently that just collapsed and the cap came off.
We build a lot of duct in house, and sheet metal guys. We call them tin knockers because they called them back in the
Yeah.
day. That's actually what my license plate says. Everybody always asks, "What's your license plate mean?" Tin knocker. Because we build all around sheet metal, and they're just it's going to be interesting the next 10 years because all of our sheet metal guys are all almost 60, and they're essentially on their way out. And I don't know, with these last few projects, I've been getting bids to have have the sheet metal just delivered on site, which isn't bad because it all comes ready to rock. It's all numbered. It's, basically like putting a giant puzzle together. But
Yeah.
we've been so used to having the convenience of building all our own stuff. If you ever have an issue where, this piece doesn't fit, well, I can't just go to the shop and build it like I do now. You're calling up, hey, this piece isn't right. Send me another one. Well, that could take weeks. So having our own full blown sheet metal shop has its definite advantages. It's good and bad. It's hard to find sheet metal guys to fabricate anymore, but at the same time, it's convenient as hell to be able to build all your own stuff. So yeah.
That's why I like to watch like Jeff Jadem, when he does his metal stuff. I'm like, cool. I'll probably never use it, but at least I've seen him do that.
It's truly an art. Those guys, I do very minimal sheet metal. I know enough to get stuff done, but our OGs, those guys are they're amazing. They're very talented.
So you do refrigeration too? Like I saw you do walk-in boxes and stuff like that. You still do that?
Yep. I just got done with walk-in at a local school district. We don't do a ton of refrigeration. I will do the schools that we have contracts with. We'll take care of their refrigeration, and then we do the local beer dispensaries or whatever you want to call them, like Alfred's Distributing, Budweiser, Coors. That was probably our biggest refrigeration project we've ever done. Those were huge refrigeration walk-ins for their facility, but very, very minimal on the refrigeration side. I don't advertise it, and I don't do a lot of service and repair on that side. It's mainly for school districts that we have contracts with. I don't do gas stations, that crap. Yeah, I stay away from that.
Well, people always, because I do restaurants, and people, I've heard people say that's the bottom of the barrel, this and that. We pick and choose at this point because we're a little bit, bigger now. So like it has to be the right customer.
Yeah.
So we do hospitals, we do restaurants. We used to do school districts, not so much anymore because there's a whole process to get into them. But gas stations, that's funny that you bring that up. We had the local like Stripes, all over. They wanted us, and we're like, cool, we'll try it out. Yep. Didn't like it. So we had to turn away work. We still get calls from them. We just don't go to them.
Yep.
And it's hard because we used to have also the IHOPs and the Denny's and stuff like that. That's open 24 hours. And then the gas stations are open 24 hours. A lot of nuisance calls, a lot of calls in the middle of the night. Just wasn't worth it for us. So like, let the next guy take care of it. We're good.
Yep. I've always said the same thing. Refrigeration, if you're doing it, you're married to it. It's 24/7. They don't care what time of day it is. They're going to call.
No, luckily we don't have those anymore. We do have one customer that we've had, but we've had them for like over 15 years. So we'll make exceptions for that. But if it's not honestly, if it's not the freezer, I'm not going out there in the middle of the night. So that's my thing, right?
Yeah. Well, and then they want you to be liable. I had a kind of funny. I had a customer at a school we were doing a new walk-in at, and they had this 30-year-old walk-in that's sitting right next to it. Well, it went down on a Friday afternoon, and they didn't catch it till Monday the following day. And they're like, well, we lost $18,000 worth of food. If this walk-in was done, we wouldn't have that issue. I said, okay, but that's not on us. You knew this walk-in was 8 months out. So the fact that thing went down is, quote unquote, your issue, not our issue. But you just get stuff like that where it's, it's inconvenient for them and they want to put the blame on somebody else and have somebody else cover the cost. And it's like, no, that's the biggest issue I have with the refrigeration stuff. There's always huge dollars to be lost. And it's like, no, we're just here to.
That is the one thing you got to worry about. We deal with that a lot because that's my main thing that I do. Like I said, emergencies we'll take care of because a freezer, there's nothing I can do about that. If it's a cooler, usually they have somewhere else that they can store it, or honestly, they should have a plan in place. Usually,
should always be a backup plan.
Yeah, they should have a backup plan to do this. So like we have customers that Luckily, like that one that we've had forever, there's so many of them here that they usually move their product to another store or whatever it is. Like they have plans in place.
Right.
So, and then some places will do the truck on site that has the, the, what do you call it? The refrigeration trucks that come in and, they can store it, whatever it is. So usually it's not our fault.
Yeah.
But that is one thing you have to keep in mind is like the product, the money there, they're always going to bring that up. That always gets brought up.
Yep.
I've had, I go out to a call and it's like, we're going to lose product or, like you said, it's over the weekend. There's nothing you can do about it. I can't get a part sometimes.
Yep.
That is a common, reoccurring theme that they will always talk about the product. That's one reason I don't really get into anything super heavy, at least right now, because we're only a small team of like 4 with one helper
Mhm.
sometimes. So I don't want to have to deal with like anything on the supermarket level,
Yeah.
where it's like
Exactly.
a crazy amount, right? Then they're gonna try and put that on you.
Yeah. I have a buddy who came from a big refrigeration company out of Phoenix where that's all they did was like huge Kmart's, Walmart's, all that stuff. And I'm just like, no way, no thanks. They begged us locally to take over, and I'm just like, nope. I don't have the manpower. I don't have the desire. It's just not my forte. I
Yeah.
give those guys props that deal with that stuff.
Oh yeah. Like there's stuff that I won't do, but like whoever does do it, like that's great. That's good on them. Props to them, all that. I'm the same way. Like there's certain things because when we started, we try to do everything and you quickly find out what you can and can't do, right?
100%. Yep. And that's what I
So,
always say, like focus on what you're good at. Everyone knows what they're good at. Okay, I'm okay at this, but I'm great at this. Focus on that because, at the end of the day, when you're trying to do everything, you're just gonna, you're burning yourself out. And we were the same way. When we started, we had a lot of hungry people who, wanted to learn more, wanted to make more money, wanted to do this, wanted to do that. And so that's where, yeah, we were doing everything literally refrigeration, commercial, residential, service, repairs. We had contracts. I mean, we did literally everything, man. It was nuts. And it worked for a long time. And we're just now, like my brother and I, I've been in it 20 years. He's been in 16, and the old timers got over 40, and we're just to the point where it's like, we really need to simplify, and especially with manpower, because you're not getting these seasoned guys jumping on board, a dozen at a time like we used to. It's very limited as far as, who's jumping into the trades. But I feel like that's kind of changing right now too. That's why I really like the whole social media Instagram thing, because I was actually talking with Rhino about this from HVAC R&D. And when how old are you?
me, I'm 37.
Okay, so you're the same age. So 20 years ago, when we were in high school, it was like everybody looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean you want to do air conditioning? You're going to stand on a roof the rest of your life? All my buddies thought I was nuts. And now here we are 20 years later, and we're the guys, making money. And one of my friends, he's a website designer, and he's like, "Man, I'm going to be asking you for a job here pretty soon. You guys are killing it, and AI is going to put me out of business, basically. So I think the trades are becoming sexy again. Kind of like how it
Yeah.
was back in the 80s and 90s, where when we were in high school, it was kind of like, oh, blue collar guys are less than. I want to be at a computer, or whatever. And now I feel like that's done a 180 entirely. And I think that social media has a lot to do with that too, because everybody can actually see what we do rather than just, oh yeah, I'm on a roof all day.
No,
So
I love it because even before like I found the whole Instagram thing, like I would share it, like when I had Facebook and stuff, like I would try and share, I'm on a rooftop, I'm doing this, or I'm like, I enjoyed what I did. And then I found out that there was all these guys on Instagram and, doing similar stuff, showing what they do.
yep,
So I agree. I think it's really cool now, like, and I love all the guys, like the educators, which is like Ty and Craig
yep,
Migliaccio, all those stuff, are all those guys. And then I like all the guys that try to make it cool. You got Ben Poole doing what he's doing.
yep,
You got all these, even the guys like the from the HVAC visionaries,
Yep.
all
Yep.
these different content creators that just do really cool clips of the work
Right.
that they do, make it look cool for the younger
Exactly.
guys.
Yes. 100%.
Because you don't want to see an old man just up there and complaining about the job or anything. You want to make it look appealing.
Yeah, and I mean, let's face it. At the end of the day, everybody's got to have a job. Everybody's got to make money, and it I feel like it's really kind of making a comeback, like it was 40 years ago, where people want to do this type of work again.
Yeah,
Not
because
sit at a
there
computer.
was a gap like that's the whole
Yes.
thing. And I did a thing for Jobber that they sent me like some stats and stuff. I was like, crap, there's a big gap that
Yeah.
people, like you said, were into other things at one point. And if you get into the like any trade, honestly, but I do think HVAC is you know is one of the thriving
Hey, we're the
better.
best, dude.
It's the better one, honestly. Um, it's always in demand. Like I always tell people, you learn a skill, you can eat for life. Nobody can take away that skill that you learned. You'll
Not at all.
always have it, and it's always in demand. Like if you walk into any building, you go anywhere, there's always air conditioning, ventilation, refrigeration, you name it, it's always there. Like we cannot be without it.
100%. There's not going to be a robot or AR or anything that's going to put us out of business. It's not a necessity anymore, or not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity.
No, just think about it. Like AI is the new thing now, and it's scary how quick that thing
Yes.
grows and learns. So you got AI that can do a lot of the, like you said, computer stuff, like the even uh editing and photo editing and pictures. Like it can do so many things. Like I've seen it integrated with like Photoshop, and like anybody that doesn't know how to work a computer, if they have AI, they can do almost anything, right?
Yes. 100%.
So there's the AI thing. There's also just machines out there. There's like self checkout is an easy one to think of, right? Whole bunch of cashiers gone, and now you got self checkout for everybody. A lot of those things, like they're replacing people in the workforce, but you can't have a machine or AI do what we do, right? We got to figure out things. We got to be on the rooftop. Like none of that's possible with AI or robots, really.
It's really crazy to see it go full circle again. Definitely.
Yeah, we're looked at differently now. We're needed, appreciated. It's
Yes.
coming back around,
100%.
and that's always the cool part. I'm sure you deal with it too. Like when you can help a customer out and they're super appreciative, thankful. That's always a cool part of our job too. Is and which I talk to a lot of residential guys that love, saving the day. I feel
Yeah.
good when I fix the freezer and stuff. I'm like, I saved you a bunch of product right there.
Yeah. Exactly. It makes you feel good, and that's what I've always said is if we absolutely cannot leave a person without air, then we won't. We'll do everything in our power to fix it, especially here because it's 118. Nobody wants to sleep in a hot house. So, yeah, you get a whole different appreciation from a customer when it's a Friday night and they're freaking out because they're going to be without air all weekend, and you get them up and going, and I don't know, it makes you feel good.
Those are the things that I like to like make sure we talk about, because like you said, like trying to make it look cool, make like there's a bunch of positives that outweigh the negatives, right? Like and that's what new people coming in need to hear, is like, the feeling you get, the feeling of accomplishment, the different routes you can take, because there's something for everybody in this trade. Like you like you said, when we started, we took on everything. We try to build it up, everything like that. But you can pick and choose. Like I chose kitchen refrigeration. I chose light commercial for a reason. I cannot do residential. I don't want to do any of that other stuff. I don't even want to do construction. It's interesting. It
Yeah.
looks fun,
Yeah.
which I'll ask you about a job right now. But all that looks really cool. Just like you said, I know what I'm good at. I know where I'm best at, and that's where I stay. Doing what you do, doing so many things that you do. What are some, or what is the coolest, or your favorite job to do, or anything you've had done recently?
Well, like I said, I love VRF. That's kind of my niche. When that came into play, I was like, all right, this is my shit. I like this right here. Um, I enjoy the construction. I enjoy the commercial. I just enjoy the bigger projects. The logistics behind it, and you really have to strategically plan and stage, and
Like
you got to have all your ducks
build out and plan and everything.
100%, and that was one thing that, my dad always told me was like, be prepared for the next day, don't prepare day of, be prepared in advance. So when we're doing, like tomorrow, we're setting 14 package units on a car dealership. I already have that all staged, ready to go. Curb adapters set in place, units set in place, crane plan. And I enjoy that side of it where you're, getting your logistics all in order and trying to strategically plan everything so you do have a smooth day. I mean, you always have issues. It's inevitable. It
Oh,
happens. But
you got to plan for the
yeah,
hiccups.
I would say the biggest downfall to new construction now is everybody's ridiculous timelines.
Oh yeah.
Projects start months late, and they want you to still hit their same target date, and work weekends and nonstop. I just did a job recently where, I mean, I was living at that project just to get it done because it literally started a year late, and they still wanted to hit a certain deadline, and I was just like, there's no way, absolutely no way. And there was a big push because they were going to get sued by the customer because they started late. So, and I hate being the one where I've never held up a project in 20 years. No one is like, oh, we're waiting on you. Well, this one job, they were waiting on us. So I'm
Mm.
like, I'm going to live here. I was working there 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for 30 days straight, just trying to get our portion done. And we did. It was just, that is probably the one thing I hate the absolute most now about the new construction is contractors, the GCs, and their absolute ridiculous timelines because they just don't add up. Well, I need you to finish this portion in 5 days. I'm like, well, that's going to take us a month. There's no way, and make it happen. It's just
No, I
nobody
know.
cares. There's no one cares about anybody but themselves on that side of it. So it's a struggle. It's a big
I guess
struggle.
those are the headaches that I don't want to deal with, because like doing what we do, every now and then we do get different types of jobs. So like the other day, I was actually out to a hotel that was being built. Right
Hmm.
now, I only got to touch one mini split. I didn't do any of the other work. Like I
Right.
we were there when everything was already kind of piped in and stuff. So they're like, we need you to finish installing this mini split just because of the connections we have, right? We've handled some of their other hotels for service work and stuff like that. So they're
Hmm.
like, we can't, the contractor for this can't come out. Can you come out and finish installing the mini split, because it was for like a server room or something like that.
Right.
So talking to the contractor there, the guys in charge, they were going off on a bunch of headaches that they had going on and this and that. And the one thing though was that he was actually surprised that everything was on time. He's like, we're actually getting through this on time, because
Yeah.
that never happens.
It's rare now. I mean, it's almost impossible. Just you know, COVID. I mean, that screwed everything up as far as logistics go. We
Oh
can't
yeah.
get this, we can't get that, and da da da. But I feel like it gave everyone an excuse to have a delay. Where after that, it was like it didn't seem like anything is ever on time anymore. It's crazy.
Not on time. You got to order stuff all the time.
Yeah.
Everything's back ordered. I'm like,
Oh, I can't get it. Yeah, it's on back order. Yeah,
how is
it's
this
like,
still happening?
yeah, it's
And
it's nuts.
price hikes.
Yes, that's
I just noticed that our refrigerants, or the ones that we carry, finally have been coming down, because like they were like skyrocketed
yeah,
for so long.
yep,
And that's one conversation that I brought up on the other show with Curtis and stuff. I'm like, do you remember when we used to get these drums for like $100 or less?
yeah. $80 a jug, man.
I was
Not
like,
no more.
damn.
Yep, it's
Um,
crazy.
so you had RLS come out to a job site with you, right?
Well, I didn't have them come out. They actually contacted me, and I told them. I told the girls. I didn't know. I didn't even know who I was talking to because they, I was talking to them on social media. We
Yeah.
always, tag them in our posts because I've been a huge press guy for a long time. I mean, I've been using press for almost 10 years now, and
Oh wow.
we used another company prior to RLS and Zoomlock when it kind of first came to market, and then that manufacturer, it was a mess. That was junk. It was nothing
Oh, so you
compared to
had
what
bad experiences before.
100%. It was horrible, horrible experience. And we actually did a BRF project where I had done my research on press, and I was like, I want to use this rather than solder. And they told me, well, you can only use this brand. This is the only thing that we approve. Absolute nightmare. Never
Oh,
again.
that's the one that they approved, the bad one.
Yeah. I used it on one project, and I think I pulled out literally every fitting I installed. It was that
Dang.
bad. And it had nothing to do with install. It was just horrible design. I'm sure they've become far advanced now, but yeah, never again. And then found Zoomlock, which is now obviously RLS, and I've been using that for probably about 8 years. And oh yeah, it's great. I mean, I use it on everything, whether it be a project with 1,000 fittings or a project with 2 fittings. If I don't have to braze, then
Yeah.
we're really leaning on that. But yeah, they contacted me and said, hey, we want to come out and we want to shadow you and follow you and check out your projects. We know you use our stuff on a lot of your projects. And so Jaden and Jessica came out and
You had them on a rooftop and everything, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah. I told them, I said, I'm in the desert. I'm not in San Diego on the beach. And like, yeah, we know. We've looked you up. And I'm like, okay. They're like, we want to come out the second week of June. And I'm like, that's when it
Okay.
starts to get hot, right? Like we're hitting 110 then. Yeah, we know we're going to bring shorts and sunscreen. And I'm kind of like, all right, no problem. And so they show up, and I think that week it was 110, 112. So I took them to a bunch of different projects we were working on and stuff we had just recently finished. We did a big medical building. That was the roof that they were on. That was white TPO, and it was
Yeah.
it was it was about 112 that day. And I said, here you go. Here's the thermometer so you can see how hot it is. And it was like 122 on that roof at the time. And they're like, this is nuts. You guys are crazy. And we're like, yeah, we know. And then I took them to
It
that
takes a special kind of crazy to do what we do.
It's not for the weak, that's for sure. Yeah, and then I took them to a U-Haul project we were working on, which was just absolutely just miserable inside that building. The humidity was intense, and that's when you see her putting her camera in front of the fan because it locked up because of the heat, and she's like, "This is crazy. My camera doesn't work. It's so hot in here." I'm like, "Yeah, it's no joke here."
And that's another thing, like the whole technology thing, like we've said, has changed. I like the tools and the direction that's going into, making our jobs a lot easier and better, just overall.
Yeah. Well, it makes a better tech too, when they're actually, following protocol and installing the correct way, brazing with nitrogen and, doing all the extra steps, evacuating to, 500
Which
microns.
like
And
on that RLS one, I think that's a video that I had seen that you were talking about, like even the Firewatch. That's kind of why you do the press fittings almost exclusively now, or as much as you can. Because I think you said that they have to be there even like a day, or 24 hours or something like that.
yeah, so there's at some local geothermal plants, I don't do any work out there, but my brother-in-law did as a plumber. And whenever you're soldering on site, you have to have a second guy watching, and then they want you to sit there and watch to make sure you don't have any embers, go up and create a fire even after the fact. So, time is money. And when you got 2 guys standing there, even just to do a simple repair, obviously if you're billing for that time, then by all means, but if you're booked and busy and you got 2 guys standing there essentially just waiting for a fire to start or not start, that's affecting your business as well. So, there's so many advantages to press where not only just, a guy doesn't have to drag torches into an attic, you take a couple fittings, you press it in and boom, you're done. But the efficiency of it is huge where, they asked me, when did you like see the light, I guess you could say, on press? And I bought the tool to do a project up in Palm Springs where we were doing 300 fittings. It was a big tilt up. It had like 30 split systems. We were doing, I think, 5 or 6 of those split systems, but it was a lot of pipe, 4-story building coming down. So my brother and I go to the project, and we were talking about it, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna press all this, and he's kind of like, well, what's that? Well, it's this new tool that came out, blah blah blah. So I calculated if we would have gone through and soldered all 300 of those elbows and couplings and everything, it would have taken us about, between him and I, close to 3 weeks, plus nitrogen, plus everything else. Him and I went through, and we, not running pipe, just fittings. We prepped and fitted all the fittings and crimped everything in about 3 to 4 days. I think it was 4 days by the time we were done. So, going from 2 guys at 3 weeks to 2 guys at 3 days is huge as far as labor savings goes.
Yeah, the whole press thing, like I was looking into it too, and I was looking into it like a couple of years ago. I barely got into it. And yeah, it's for somebody like me, I don't think it makes as big of a difference as like if you're running like that many fittings, right? Because like you said, it went from weeks to days. So
Yes.
that's always where you're gonna have the most benefits. Because when you braise, and I always tell people, I mean, it depends on the scale, but like if you're brazing that much, that's the gas isn't free. You got to buy a bunch of make sure you have enough oxygen, acetylene, and
Yep.
nitrogen if you're doing it the right way.
Yep.
You got to protect valves. You got to cool down your pipes. There's a whole bunch that goes into it. If you're doing
Yeah.
that much, that many joints in a job. So that's
Right.
where you see it. Now, for me, it's still convenient. I've done it in a bunch of like walk-in boxes, right? Um, or I don't have to bring in. I know I still got a pressure test and all that, but I'm not bringing in the nitrogen first. I'm not bringing in a
Right.
big ass caddy of my tanks.
Yep.
Sometimes I got to braze above the walk-in box, and it's like in this little drop ceiling. I just did one the other day where my I barely fit through through the beams and stuff that I had to get through,
Yep.
and all that stuff is stuff that you don't think about. You're like, oh, brazing is quicker. It-
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not, and sometimes it's just not convenient. Like you got all this stuff, and the fire watch. I do hospital work. That's another
Yep.
thing is that the whole fire watch deal.
Yep. And that's just it. A lot of the time, like I talk to a lot of guys at supply house that, they know we use press, and they're like, oh, how do you use it to your advantage and this and that? Well, I'm not thinking of it as one fitting. I'm thinking of thousands of fittings on a job. And that's really where you have the significant savings going from, brazing to press. But even on single applications, yeah, we still have to, solder, like that walk in that I was, doing.
Yeah,
The valves on those, you can't press those on. So you have to braze there. That's what I tell people. It's not that we don't braze at all. We're just really big on efficiency, and press is huge on efficiency. Yeah, we still braze. We still have to do leak repairs and all the normal stuff that everybody else does. We just try to use it to our advantage where we can. And obviously on bigger projects, that's where press comes into play.
yeah. Well, at my age, I'm all about convenience. I don't want to be dragging around stuff.
Yeah.
And even that walk-in box that I was talking about. I did one recently that we were running line sets, and I went into that small space, and my dad's like, "You're not gonna press it?" Like he expects me to press all the time now, and I was like,
Right.
"Oh, I didn't have the right." Because they ended up reducing the line set. I was like, I don't have a reducer. I'm just gonna braze it real
Yeah.
quick. But yeah, like I try to do it as much as I can. I've even well, you would be one to know, like you've had good success with it because people are always going to be they leak or this and that. Like
It's 50-50, man. If you got guys who hate it and guys who love it.
it's always a hot topic.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I was the only. I'm always into to new stuff, new technology. So like I'm gonna give it a shot if it saves me time and my back because like the number one thing I hate taking is that caddy, the torch caddy, because like it's
Yep.
not easy to get into places.
No.
So then my only concern was it putting it in freezers, but I've actually put it in walk-in freezers, never had a leak on them. So
Yep.
that was my test for them.
Yeah, we did the same thing. That was my worry was, okay, how does this withstand going from, below freezing temps to normal? And same thing, we tried it on freezers. We did a hemp extraction facility where they had this gnarly piece of equipment and the walk-in was at like negative 30 and
Oh,
we put it on that and same thing, it going from a frozen pipe all day to when the system shuts off and goes back to normal room temperature. I thought for sure, oh, the expansion and contraction, this thing's gonna leak. Being a tech, you just think that
yeah.
way, and I still have yet to have an issue with it. I still have yet to have a fitting that's actually failed on me. Everybody says, oh, you get leaks, this and that. It's all in the prep. I had a VRF system we did during COVID on a school where I had a leak that I just found about a month ago. It was on the fitting, and I'm going, okay, maybe this is going to be my first one.
Hmm.
Nope. I literally cut the fitting out, and you look down inside. We didn't actually push the pipe past the O-ring, so it
Oh,
started to leak. But it took 4 years to start leaking. It was crazy. We went through pressure tests, it went through evacuation, all the normal processes, no leak. 4 years later, it just now started leaking and it wasn't past the O-ring. So same thing. It was operator error.
and I don't. Neither of us work for RLS. I'm just the reason I chose them and I like them is because it's soft copper.
Yes.
So, like you said, you didn't pass the O-ring, but you have those crimps, basically like a 360 crimp, copper to copper,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of bonds it so that you
Yep. It's
have kind of like a redundancy in that situation.
exactly. So yes, that was my mistake that we didn't get past the O-ring and it's eventually going to leak, obviously. But that was the one scenario where I was like, oh, maybe it was the fitting, but it's always boiled down to the prep, always, always, always where you nick the O-ring or push the O-ring out or, whatever the case may be. And that's what I tell everybody. If you're prepping correctly, you're not going to have any issues. And that's one of the reasons why I love VRF so much because it has trained my guys to think differently where when we are brazing, they have to braze with nitrogen. You have to
Yeah.
evacuate. You have to go through the steps. And that's why I feel like VRF is so reliable and has the longevity because, yeah, what manufacturer is going to give you a 10-year warranty on a commercial system if it's not properly installed? And we've had really good luck with VRF because of that, because of, you're following protocol and you're installing accordingly.
No, that's awesome. So we've been here over an hour. I don't want to keep you too long, man. Usually this goes by super quick. Uh, I appreciate everything and for you stopping by to talk about, your work and what you do.
Yeah, definitely, man. I appreciate you having me on.
So everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you guys for tuning in and we'll see you guys next time.